impression of Bulgarian audience?
Out of this world. It was one of the best shows we had that tour. You know, you always decipher how the shows go through an audience, size-wise, most people do, seismically. But for myself, it's more about the energy. And there have been a few shows, you know, of course, Germany, I love, Norway. I mean, we're just so grateful for our fan base. And I know everybody says that, but we truly are. But over here, there's a certain dimension that people really love the art. It's not just about the song, it's about the connection. And that to me is beautiful.
How can you explain in keywords what a five-finger death punch to you personally?
I mean, it's more than a word. You know, it first started as, I would say, an act of rebellion. Something that I didn't see other people doing, and it really irritated me because music is universal. It's beyond math. It's the one connection we all have, no matter what anyone listens to. It's that sonic vibe, the energy that's replaced between us, right? And so with Death Punch, at first, it was because, you know, I was in a band prior to Death Punch, Motogrator, and we didn't have a lot of success. And I was really frustrated by that because I really loved that band. We built our own instruments, we had this thing, but it kind of got shadowed and put on the side. So when I joined Five Finger with Zoltan, the idea was to go back out and to do it our way or no way, hence the name. We always say come out swinging, and I know it's a good metaphor, but it was rather true. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew, whether we made it or not, that we did what we loved. And I think that's what resonated with a lot of the fans and has kept, I call them family, because that's what keeps them around, is the idea that, you know, let me put it this way. We've been the underdog from day one. You know that. Everybody wanted us to fade away. But that was the gift of being a part of this, was to be able to relay that. And I've never taken no for an answer. And I think that was the beginning of Five Finger. Through time, it's obviously morphed, and it's become more about a legacy than just the moment. You know what I mean? It's not just a band to me anymore. Now it's about the universal chapter that I get to leave behind.
When you started the band, have you ever imagined that global success that you shared right now, with so many top hits, with millions of albums? What were your dreams back at that time, at the beginning?
It's hard to say. Back then I had such a different idea. Again, I didn't really think this was going to be something that we gotten as big as it is. I didn't plan on it. Everybody talks about the hits. I didn't plan that. I don't go in the studio and try to write a song so that I get a hit out of it. It just relays well. And so knowing that that's grown into what it is, I'm blessed. I'm grateful. But beyond that, I never had any plans, so I don't know. It's overwhelming sometimes because I never wanted the success. I see what happens to people when they get successful. They turn inward, and you saw me. I got lost in a bottle for a long time. I was drinking my way to the grave. And it was because I think of the stardom factor and the infection is what I call it. When too many people start telling you you're godly and you're amazing, you start believing it. And you forget that you're just a human that you're connected in a different way with music than most. And again, it's a gift. So it's grown into something more, but I never saw it coming. And I think that's what's kept me so grateful and humble throughout the time, is that I see it still growing. And that to me is epic. That's what it's all about. I can smile and say that. So look, I just got goosebumps. I love it.
What is your main source of energy and inspiration?
Inspiration comes from all angles. I've never pigeonholed it. Life is a spectrum of all different shapes and colors. And, you know, I've seen a lot of metal bands get stuck in the dark areas, the very aggressive areas, and the very angry areas, and that's fine. But I refuse to live my life in such a small vein of what is to be an entire emotion. So inspiration comes from all angles. You can open that door and find inspiration. You know, there's some asshole out there. There's a beautiful woman out there who's having a hard time. Somebody just gave birth. I just met somebody who had a baby last week and came to the show, which I don't encourage, but it happens. So inspiration comes from all angles. But to really envelop those and to embrace them, that's the hard part, because I'm kind of an empath. So for me, it's more of keeping them out. It's very easy to absorb things for me. So it's more of a difference of focusing it, putting into a song, and then relaying it.
But still, you're a philanthropist and working on different causes, so you're not keeping all things out.
No.
What such causes are very close to your heart? What are your main battlefields and struggles?
I despise poverty because I grew up in it. I don't like the way that equality is just a word. People are not treated equally. And I think that the facade that everybody's born and created equal, it's wrong. But people all have the chance to grow into something. And immediately as a society, if somebody doesn't exactly fit into a block, instead of looking for another hole for them, we throw them to the side. And for me, that's always been disheartening. So that's one thing that I really, anytime I can do something for people with less. Every Christmas back in the States, I give 100 sleeping bags out. And I don't just give them. I go downtown, like in our cities, and I hand them out to the homeless guys because they're sitting there. What use is it if you hand it to a corporation, that's going to give it to whoever? So I actually hand them out individually. I always give stuff to St. Jude's, Cancer Societies, Fuck Cancer, a lot of recovery. I donated a lot of money in the Olympics this last round to two skateboarders, who came in third place in the world skating competition, where most people would have not thought of that. You look at the gymnastics and the wrestlers. I grew up in Colorado. It's a small area out in the center of the United States, and we had a lot of skaters, and I skated my whole childhood. So for me, that was a cool thing to be able to give that back. Again, it's just whatever inspires me in the moment, and if it really is doing good, I don't just want to give something to somebody to make myself feel better. That's putting yourself in God's position, and I don't do that. So.
Very intriguing is the title of your song Afterlife, which will be the title of your next album. We play it a lot on the radio. How does it happen to pick that special title?
Not only the fact, you can get it down to the basics, which is, I did die. Period. I quit drinking on my own for about 4 days, and my body shut down. I went into seizure, and I was dead for almost 4 minutes. And I experienced a lot, and I definitely came back a different entity than I went in. But that's just a minor piece of it. I think in an all-encompassing societal vision of it, it's more of after your daily life. After you do this tonight, what are you going to go home and do? You're going to drink a glass of tea? You're going to take a bath? Make love to your loved one? Pet your dog? Those are the things that we take for granted. And so afterlife is really about that, and about taking action. That's why the chorus says, I don't want to wait for heaven to change me. If you sit around and wait for some glorious entity to come down and change this all, you're going to be waiting for a long time, and you're going to be really fucking disappointed. So my opinion is, you were given the gift of life. Embrace it, share it, live it, and that's afterlife.
You're a hero to so many young people, or even middle-aged.
That's hard to swallow.
Yeah, but still it is. And who are your heroes?
Oh. I grew up a bastard. I had a stepfather, but I never met my real dad. So for me, I really looked for people to look up to. I don't want to say idols, but the people I looked to were, believe it or not a lot of musicians. I looked to people like Tesla. I don't know. Alexander the Great is definitely one of my favorites. Historic pieces, people that really stood for something in history that made a difference. Not just doing one thing, but changing entire societies. Whether it be good or bad in some people's eyes, they did. And so for me, that was always life-changing. But then you got like my grandma. I love my grandmama. I think about her every minute. So my kids are inspiration. Those are my idols, because I can look to them and I find peace and I find joy where the rest of the world gets icky. I can look at one of my daughters and get a smile. So if it came to music, I had all sorts of inspiration. I loved everything from Faith No More, Alice in Chains, Glenn Danzig's one of my favorites. Pink Floyd. Musically, it just went everywhere for me. Suicidal Tendencies, Metallica, of course. But music, again, was for me, it was natural, and it was a way to communicate, and I felt like music understood me. So I never looked up to it. I was always in it. So again, I'm inspired by a lot of people. I truly am. Neil Armstrong, you know, that guy, they say he didn't go to the moon, only he knows. But if he did, awesome. That's fucking cool, right? That's something to look up to. Elon Musk, you know, he's got a lot of, there's a reason he is who he is, you know. You have to, Bruce Lee, I adore Bruce Lee. You know, his philosophies on life in general and just his ability to encompass what he's doing. So the list goes on and on, but I won't drag it out, sorry. But I have a lot of people that I've always found inspiration in. I would never say they were idolized. But, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have a special guest, Megadeth, on your US tour.
Yeah.
I guess you respect them?
Absolutely. I don't really know Dave. We've met 4 times, the tours, because we're always come and go. You know, he's on his way out, I'm on my way in, excuse me. But he is a very intelligent human being. I don't really get into the grassroots of it, where Metallica and him and the whole, that was before me. So my first album from him ever was called So Far, So Good, So What? And on that was a cover of Anarchy in the UK from the Sex Pistols. And that was my introduction to Dave. So it's hard for me because I see Dave, you know, he sells, but who's buying? And I meet him, he's like, hi, Ivan. And it's a totally different person. It's like meeting Rob Zombie. And he's, you know, he's vegan and he's very cultural. But then you see The Devil's Rejects and you go, it just doesn't match. So, but I think Dave's a great dude, man. He's a good father too, which, you know, clicks for me. So I'm excited about it. But again, to me, it's more of a wonder that I get to call him my peer. You know, I'm not looking up to this guy. I never did. To me, it's playing alongside somebody who paved the way for us, and a lot of gratitude there. So it's pretty cool.
You're a wonderful showman, besides great musician and wonderful voice. And who's your role model in this aspect, showmanship? I
mean, I always loved Danzig. I'm a huge Glenn fan, the way he moves on stage and the way he feels. I loved Phil Anselmo, Pantera. A huge inspiration for me, because at that time it had Slayer and Exodus and King Diamond, bands like that, Megadeth. But when Pantera came out, it was more street, you know, it was more like real shit. And so for me, Phil was always a big inspiration. I'd say live though, I mean, Jonathan Davis, oh my gosh, Korn. Yeah. He never has a bad show. And it's not that he doesn't think so. He gets into it and he's very dirty about it. And so when I'm up there, there's no rules. It's however my heart tells me. I don't think a whole bunch. So for me, it's however my soul is directing me. So his influence of Mike Patton, Faith No More, Mike Muir from Suicidal Tendencies, Dee Snider. He's great on stage. He's so long and linky, and so I'd say I'd studied a bunch from Corey Taylor, Slipknot. Oh my Lord, man, that guy with or without the mask, he's fucking genius. So, but I don't know. I've always just been myself up there. I don't try to emulate anyone. I think that's fake. So,
how do you keep in shape your body, your voice? What do you do?
I sold my soul.
Yeah. Besides this,
no,
you
I really
drink a
sold
lot
my soul.
of water, I guess.
No, not actually. Today I'm teeing it.
Okay, but still you're not drinking.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I don't drink anymore. It's been almost 5 years.
Do you make vocal exercises or special?
I do. I call it the $1 million vocal warm-up. I only took 3 lessons ever. 2 from a woman named Susan Rumer, who does voiceover work in LA, and then 1 from a man named Pete Murray, who sang for a band called Low Pro and Ultra Spank. They were the only 3 lessons I ever had. I grew up very organically. My grandmother was a country singer. My grandfather listened to a lot of country and jazz. My uncle was a rock guy. But I don't really do the warm-ups. For me, it's what my body's going to give me, I just work with. So I know that sounds crazy, right? But I truly don't. I don't like the whole bumblebee shit when they're bumblebee. So I have one vocal warm-up, but I can't show you because everybody else would use it, and it's my special thing.
Okay, your secret.
Someday I'll let it out. I've had a lot of people ask me about it. Phil from All That Remains is one of my good friends, and I gave him a vocal lesson one day. He lost his voice, and I showed him how to use his second vocal cords. and to use more of the lower back instead of his stomach. And if you listen from that point on, his albums got a little more singy. He wasn't screaming as much. So the key lies within. But no, it's something I don't tell a whole bunch of people.
Do you have your guilty pleasures?
Of course.
What kind of?
I don't name it. Where are you going?
Know.
Like music or candy?
I don't know. Food or just, I don't know, making something silly or...
I love being silly. I think humor, stand-up comedy. I want to be a comedian. I do. I'm just not good at it.
It's not too late.
It's not my thing. Oh, I thought you were going to say it's not good on you. I was like, yeah, I know. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of little things. When I go out to dinner on off nights, since I don't drink anymore, I'll order one of every dessert on the menu. I don't care what they are, just to try them. And that's always been fun. But for me, I don't know. I got a lot of little clicks, little ticks.
Mm-hmm. Are your children following your step music-wise?
No, not so much. My oldest daughter wants to be a tattoo artist. She's a brilliant artist. Yeah.
Does she have something to do with you?
No, she's going to do her own thing. She's got her own visions. But I encourage that with my kids. You know, music they all love. Here's a true story. My kids love music. I mean, embrace it. They do not necessarily listen to my band. I don't yell at my kids, ever. I don't raise my voice. So when they hear me screaming, it shocks them. It's a different world for them. My oldest daughter came to see us at a show 9 years ago, had never heard me raise my voice. And I went on stage and I started yelling, and I can't remember what I said, but I looked over and she was crying. And of course, being a dad, I was freaking out. I'm like, who touched her? What's going on here? And I went over and she goes, why are you yelling at all those people? And it never occurred to me. I had never screamed in front of her. So, no, my kids love music, but Lexi's into, which is my oldest daughter, she's into stuff like crazy stuff. Everything from The Cure and Depeche Mode to, I mean, she listens to everything. But my youngest, Nova, she's into hip-hop, a lot of... it's weird. They're not big metal kids, it's neat to see. Because I'll listen, I'm playing with Metallica when I go to Europe. And my daughter's all, who the fuck is Metallica? And I'm like, oh. So.
Wonderful names of your kids.
Absolutely.
And yours too. It's not very typical. Is it your birth name, Ivan?
That's a long story. Actually, on my birth certificate, my name was John. I was named after my real father, and my mother wanted to hide me from him. And in Relay, over in Russia, Ivan relates to John. And so my mother swapped the two so that he wouldn't be able to find me. So Ivan has been there ever since. And I told her, you cursed me. Anywhere I go, I've never met another Ivan. I meet Ivans and Evans and never met an Ivan. So if there's one out there, hi, how are you? You're not alone.
Do you feel connected to Europe, to European mentality,
Absolutely.
State of mind?
Absolutely. Especially what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
I won't get too political on this, but for me, the idea that you look at music as universal, it's very artistic. It's bigger than religion in some ways. It's bigger than politics. It supersedes all of it. The connection of music between you and the culture out here, it's just a different world. I love it. In America, it's a lot about what have you done for me lately? Have you put out another single? No? When's the new one coming out? I've heard that one 30 times. I want the next one. Yeah. And I hate that shit because you don't get a chance to love your own stuff. We're out here. I've seen Wasp out here, or Alice Cooper, Judas Priest, of course, Rob Halford. There's one of my favorites. And they're playing music that they wrote 40 years ago. And it's still just as good. And it's looked at that way out here. We're out there, not so much. And that's disappointing.
Are you optimistic about the world we're living in?
I have to be. I have children. Listen, before I had kids, I would have been the first one to pour the gas on it and light the match. That's the truth. But the reality is, having children has opened my soul to an idea. And that idea is that there's something bigger and better waiting. And we will eventually get there. No matter how hard the trials may be. But I have to, because if I don't, then I'm giving my kids false hope. And I don't think any parent wants to do that. I know for damn sure I don't.
Mm-hmm. And what is your wildest dream? I believe you still have your dreams.
I want to go to Mars.
Really?
I want to see.
You mentioned Elon Musk.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's not just him. You know, as a kid, I got into. We used to go to what they call solar pods. I don't know what they call them out here. It's you sit inside of it and it has stars, and you just.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Planetarium.
Oh, planetarium.
A planetarium.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in Bulgaria.
And so I've been really lost in the stars ever since I was a kid. And again, I believe in transference of energy and stuff like that. Before I die, one of my biggest fantasies, dreams, is to go above our planet and just to look down for 1 second. Because in my head, I've visualized it already on how small we are. And to see it from that view is something I'd really like to taste, really like to see, More tangible stuff, I mean, there's tons, I'd like to find love someday, of course, true love. Everybody wants that. I don't know. I'd like to find a really nice pair of shoes that nobody else has. That's called good taste, people. But no, I mean, I have a lot of dreams, but these days I try to be more about the moment. I don't try to get lost in daydreaming too often, because then I lose sight of what I have in front of me. It's good to dream. Everybody has to dream. It's what creates vision, and but at the end of the day, if I didn't accomplish it today, there's something I can do tomorrow to maybe get closer to it.
Are you tempted to express yourself in any other art form besides?
Yes, absolutely. Like I mentioned, I'd love to do stand-up comedy. I love acting. I've acted in a few. I'm a horror fanatic. I love horror films. I mean, I love writing books. I've written a poetry book, Dirty Poetry, which is more about diaries and whatnot. I'd like to write some stories. I'd like to write an autobiography, of course. Everybody wants their story out there. But yeah, there's a lot of different stuff I'd like to do. Again, music's come so naturally for me. Since I was this tall, it was my connection, to hear my soul. And so everything else is just candy, fun.
Okay, are you a family or just a band or much more than a band, 5 Fig and Death Punch? And what to expect? What's next for you as a band?
I know that a lot of bands say that they're family because you're closer than your family, you spend more time, you learn things about one another. For me, the connection in us is more about the art. And so it supersedes the idea of family or friends or even, bandmates. It's me and Zoltan are completely polar opposites. We always call each other Spock and Captain Kirk. Spock is him, Kirk is me. He's very logical and very mathematically driven. I'm more of off the sleeve kind of emotional guy. But it works, and it's because of music and our connection there. So if anything, I'd say that we're symbiotic musically. But I don't know, we also walk different paths. So I don't know what you'd title it as. It's special. I know that much.
Yeah, special is the right word.
Indeed.
Probably. Would you please say something for our audience, for our listeners?
I really don't have a lot of advice, nor do I have anything I'd like to say to end this, because this is not the end. However, I do want to thank you for everything you've done in support and otherwise for me and her. And I always look forward to seeing and hearing from you. So keep it real. Don't ever let anybody detour you from that. Be well.